Let's head into the papers now, see what the headlines are in Nigerian newspapers. And joining me now on Skype is lawyer and social development advocate Jide Ologun and public affairs analyst Ayodele Adewale. Gentlemen, good morning. It's good to see you both.
Good morning, Mike.
Morning, Ayodele. Nice to see you too. All right, let's begin with the Daily Times here. Daily Times newspaper is where we start from. SPW recruitment modalities. Keyamo National Assembly members in shouting match. And minister accuses lawmakers of attempt to hijack 774,000 SPW recruitment process. And dares National Assembly orders state committees to proceed with the SPW recruitment exercise. Lawmakers walk out Keyamo for unruly attitude. Okay, all that on the front page of the National or the Daily Times. News Direct newspaper is next, and it says federal government moves to recover 5-year stamp duty backlog as FIRS, that's the Federal Inland Revenue Service, generates 66 billion naira in 5 months and targets 1 trillion naira annually. Okay. From there, let's go to the Blueprint newspaper now. Uproar in National Assembly over 52 billion naira and 774,000 jobs. The Keyamo blows hot, resists project takeover by lawmakers and says that they can't direct executive, insists only Buhari can stop implementation. The minister plans a 774,000 youth political structure. Lawmakers are saying that, and he can't dictate how we run our legislative business. All right. So is the words against each other there on what the motives could be. All right, that's Blueprint newspaper. National Economy is next now. Suspension of new tariff. Expect no improvement in power supply. DisCos tell Nigerians, and this is really frustrating, I must say. All right, I just spoke with one of the spokesperson for DisCos now, and I guess my guests will be interested in talking about this shortly when we get into this. Expect no improvement in power supply. DisCos tell Nigerians. All right, that's the National Economy. From there, let's go to the Leadership newspaper. Leadership says Labour DisCos on warpath over electricity tariff hike, will mobilize to resist increment. The NLC is saying this and says DisCos must refund bailouts. Okay, and the PMB, National Assembly agree on delay of takeoff date. All right, still on the tariff hike. It was supposed to start today, the 1st of July. All right, we'll be talking about this as we get along. From the Leadership, let's go to Daily Trust, which is the last paper we're looking at now. Electricity tariffs. Lawan Gbajabiamila meet Buhari, make case for subsidy. And DisCos say federal government must pay differential. And government spends 1.8 trillion naira on intervention in 6 years. Okay, this is really interesting, I must say. Okay, it's still a fallout from the tariff hike. All right, let me start with you, Jide Ologun, on this issue of tariffs that was supposed to originally start today, but government has suspended it from today until, in fact, the National Assembly is saying it can't come earlier than sometime next year. The Minister of Power has said that if there is no improvement in electricity, there cannot be improvement or there cannot be increment in tariff. But on the other hand, I just had the spokesperson of DisCos just a few minutes ago, and he said that before there can be improved power supply, Nigerians will need to pay. Jide, what do you make of this?
Let's start from the fact that Nigerians are already paying more than they should pay for power supply in Nigeria. So let's establish that. Now, we have this battle again, and the labor union is coming up to say this income.
All right, the signal is gone down there, is it? Okay, all right. Jide Ologun is a public commentator. He was making a point on the issue of the tariffs, and as it is, the point there is there has been controversy over the issue of payment of electricity tariffs in Nigeria. Nigerians are very dissatisfied and, in fact, in some cases unhappy with the companies because they have not been getting electricity. And on the other hand, the companies have been going through difficult times as well to ensure they keep up. They talk about the issue of infrastructure, they talk about the issue of the cost and the leakages here and there, and so on. So it makes it a whole lot difficult and challenging to reconcile. But Nigerians just want a power supply. That's what they want. All right, I have Jide Ologun back now on. You were making a point earlier before the line went off. Talk to us,
yes,
basically.
Let's connect it to the most recent. If you look at this country, there has been several attempts to restructure the economy. And the major one was in the early 1980s during the regime of Alhaji Shehu Shagari, called the Second Republic. And that was when we had the austerity measure, when the crude oil price started falling. And we've also had the privatization of NEPA to PACN. We have unbundled several times. We've spent so much. And now, if some private investors went into the electricity business and they cannot cope with the challenges, or they probably didn't do their feasibility studies very well, must the people pay for it? And that is what the NLC is even saying now, that the DisCos should account for the bailout funds that they receive from the public coffers. And they should also account for the estimated billings, the crazy billings. Have we denied those ones? And also the cost of the inefficiency. Do you know that Nigeria reportedly is endowed with large oil, gas, hydro, and solar resources, and it already has a potential to generate 12,522 megawatts of electricity power, with the existing plants? But it will shock you that today we just hover around 4,000 megawatts, and so we are tired of the value chain of electricity shifting the blames to the people. Recently in this country, despite the hardship, the value-added tax was increased. People are going through difficult times, but I will not so much blame DisCos or Gencos. I will blame the federal government of Nigeria. If this government wants Nigeria to be developed, attention will be given to the electricity sector of this country. Go and study China. Go and study great countries of the world. They have to settle this matter. And I think also there are underlying issues that have not been fully exposed, because I keep asking this question: why is it almost impossible to have consistent power supply in Nigeria? We even claim to generate more than we distribute, and we give excuses. When we supply Niger Republic, Benin Republic, and probably Togo electricity on a regular basis. Recently, towards the end of last year, I think these nations were owing us about 15 billion naira. We need to get serious. If we must industrialize this country, empower the economy, generate employment for the people, and make life meaningful. We are talking about improving the health sector now. We will not need electricity there, but I have said it, as long as our leaders have access to public funds to buy the huge generators and create their own power, they can subject the people to hardship, but it's not the best. And I keep advising that I look forward to a regime that will be recorded on the golden side of history for empowering the economy of this nation. And electricity is critical.
All right. Now, as it is right now, because the DisCos are insisting that they cannot, their hands are tied and there's nothing they can do when it comes to improvement in power supply. As it is, the Senate president at the time was talking about the issue of revisiting the privatization policy in the first place, because that is where all of this had started. And according to him, from reports that we read, was that the privatization wasn't done well, and it's not in the hands of maybe the right people who know what the power supply is all about. Do you think that is where Nigeria should start from right now?
Government is a continuum. The privatization we talk about was carried out, I think, during the government of General Abdulsalami Abubakar as the military head of state then, who promulgated the Public Enterprises Privatization and Commercialization Decree of 1999 that listed NEPA now changed to PACN for privatization. And the processes were carried out with brilliant promises that it was going to change the landscape of the economy and things like that. But like I said, with implementation, we have serious crisis in this nation. So it may not really be about the processes. It may be about how these businesses are conducted. We are asking, who are the faces? We call it unveiling in corporate affairs, the faces behind these businesses. Like I said earlier, if they have failed to pull their resources through, must they pass the pain to the people? And I keep saying it, all things are possible. Is anybody telling me now that the way Aso Villa was in 1982 or in 1999 is the same way it is today? Recently, my president, whom I admire so much, changed his chief security officer in Aso Villa because there were reported gunshot or whatever there. So if you care for the people of Nigeria, if you care for the economy of this nation, if you are tired of heading a nation that is adjudged the capital of poverty in the world, make the change possible. If some elements are frustrating the system, deal with them. I keep asking the question. There are possibilities. And right now, COVID-19 has taught us that you must develop your nation. You can see what is happening now. How many of these high-profile individuals, even if they think the poor should be left to their hardship, can go abroad now for treatment? Electricity is critical. I've said it this morning. Go and study Australia, study Singapore, study China, study the great countries of the world. Even though this COVID-19 reportedly emanated from China, you can see how vibrantly China has handled the situation because they already have a solid basis, a platform to manage it. So I am asking this morning that is Section 16 of our Constitution 1999 as amended important to the government that talks about sustainable development, that our economy should be managed in a way that we create wealth and make life meaningful for the people? If the answer is yes, find a solution to this electricity problem. And I know that someday, if this regime does not pay attention to it and they keep playing this politics, a regime will come that will stabilize that sector of the national life. All right. And they will be held for that. Okay. But I'm saying that the government has a huge role to play, whether GenCos, DisCos, or whatever. They are under the control and management of the government. And the government has a responsibility, according to Section 14, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution 1990 as amended, to provide security and good welfare for the people. That's the primary purpose of. All
right, Jide. Yeah, Jide, we have to leave you here now.